When they pull away, when the messages stop, when the warmth you felt suddenly vanishes, you begin to question everything. Was it real? Did they ever care? Was any of it true? The silence is deafening. The distance unbearable. The way they vanish, emotionally, physically, spiritually, feels like a dagger to the chest. It's cold. It's unfusing. And it slices through the connection you swore was growing stronger. And in that silence, your mind becomes a battlefield. You replay every word, every glance, every moment. You search for what you said wrong, what you did wrong. You wonder if you're too much, too emotional, too needy. But here's the truth. Nobody tells you when avoidance hurt you, it is not rejection. It is not the absence of love. It is the presence of fear. Because you triggered something in them, something so deep, so buried, so raw, that pulling away wasn't an insult. It was instinct. It wasn't about pushing you away. It was about protecting a wound they haven't dared to look at themselves. And still it hurts. You gave your heart, and what you got in return was distance. You showed vulnerability, and what you received was withdrawal. You leaned in and they leaned out. But don't confuse that with being unwanted. Don't let their fear become your identity. Don't allow their silence to narrate your worth. Avoidants don't express love in ways the world finds comforting. They don't pour it out through words or affection. They guard it, hide it, lock it behind walls reinforced by years of pain. So when someone like that begins to care, truly care, it's terrifying for them. Love to an avoidant is not warmth. Love is danger, because love has always come with abandonment, with loss, with betrayal. So instead of moving closer, they do the opposite. They create space, they disappear, they sabotage. Why? Because closeness makes them feel exposed. And exposure feels like a death sentence to someone who spent their entire life armoring their heart. So when they hurt you, when they push you away at the height of intimacy, it's not a declaration of indifference. It's a scream from the depths of a nervous system that's never known safety and connection. It's not that they don't care. It's that caring terrifies them. But the real tragedy, you're left in the wreckage. You who gave love with open hands, you who interpreted their distance as personal failure, you who mistook their silence for apathy. No one told you the rules. No one warned you that sometimes love doesn't look like affection. Sometimes it looks like resistance, like withdrawal, like emotional chaos. But here's the bottom line. It was never about you. This is not your fault. This is not your shame to carry. This is not a reflection of your capacity to be loved. You didn't cause their wounds. You just came close enough to touch them. And for someone who spent their life avoiding closeness, that's unbearable. That's overwhelming. That's too much. Not because you are too much, but because the intimacy you offer shines a spotlight on the very thing they're trying to keep in the dark. So they run, they disconnect, they disappear. And you're left standing in the aftermath wondering if you ever mattered. But listen closely, their actions don't define your worth. Their avoidance doesn't make you unlovable. Their silence doesn't cancel your voice. This pain, this gut-wrenching, soul-shaking pain is not a signal to shrink. It's a signal to wake up, to understand the emotional battlefield you've stepped into, to reclaim your truth before their wounds infect your self-perception. You are not weak for wanting love. You are not broken for needing connection. You are not wrong for desiring safety, closeness, and consistency. You just happen to love someone who doesn't know how to receive it. And now you're the one paying the price for a battle that started long before you ever showed up. But you can't stay in that story. You can't live your life apologizing for showing up too deeply, too honestly, too fully. Because the world doesn't need you diluted. The world doesn't need you dimmed. The world needs you in your fullness. Unapologetic, unashamed, unafraid. This is the moment you stop making their pain your prison. This is where your power begins. Avoidants are not heartless. They are not soulless. They are not incapable of love, but they are at war not with you, not with love, but with the terrifying vulnerability that love demands. You see, what looks like emotional withdrawal to you feels like survival to them. They didn't choose this response. It was built layer by layer, wound by wound. From the earliest moments when love came with conditions, when affection was unpredictable, when expressing need resulted in shame or punishment. So what did they learn? Don't need, don't rely, don't get close, because closeness meant disappointment. Vulnerability meant danger. And trust was a gamble they couldn't afford to lose again. They became masters at managing distance, masters of controlling emotional exposure, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. So much that the only way to function is to shut it down. Their mind says, if I open up, I'll get hurt. If I get attached, they'll leave. Or if I care too much, I'll lose control. So they keep you at arm's length. But deep down under the surface, behind the calm expression and emotional reserve, there's a storm of feelings they don't know how to handle. A storm of love, fear, desire, and terror all tangled together. They want closeness, but only in doses. They want connection, but only if it feels safe. They want love, but not if it threatens their sense of control. So they build walls, not to trap you out of cruelty, but to shield themselves from the intimacy they crave but fear. And here's the paradox. They long to be seen, but they're terrified of being exposed. They want to be understood, but they fear that understanding will cost them their independence. So every time love knocks on the door, they hesitate, they overthink, they self-sabotage, they test the connection by pulling away, just to see if it's safe to return, just to see if you'll stay. And when you do stay, when you offer patience, grace, and warmth, it triggers them even more. because they've never known what to do with love that doesn't demand anything in return. Love without chaos. Love without conditions. Love that remains when they pull away. It confuses their entire nervous system because everything in their body screams, this can't be real. Something's going to go wrong. So they shut down. They ignore your text. They act cold. They act indifferent. But it's not because they don't feel. It's because they feel too deeply and don't know how to hold it. Their nervous system was wired for survival, not connection. For control, not surrender. And now you've walked into their world, unarmed, open-hearted, honest. You've brought connection into a place where disconnection once meant safety. And that's terrifying. It's not about you. It never was. Their inner battle isn't something you caused. It's something you triggered by simply showing up with love. You lit a match in a place built to avoid fire. And now they're scared, not of you, but of what you represent: closeness, intimacy, the real possibility of loss. They don't hate you. They're not punishing you. They're just scared. And they may never tell you that because vulnerability is a foreign language, because saying I'm scared feels like death. So instead, they'll say nothing. They'll vanish. They'll act like it never mattered, because that's easier than admitting they don't know how to love the way they want to. But you must understand, they are not evil. They are in pain, and they're surviving the only way they know how. You can feel their inner conflict every time they get close, then pull back. Every time they open up, then disappear. Every time they say they're fine, while their energy screams otherwise. They're living in a prison built by past pain. A prison that tells them love is dangerous, that emotions are weapons, that needing someone is weak. And no matter how much you give, how gently you love, how patiently you wait, you cannot fight their war for them. They have to choose to unlearn that armor. They have to choose to face that fear. They have to choose to open the door. But you must not confuse their silence for your worth. You must not translate their retreat as your rejection. You didn't lose them. They lost their way. And you were simply the one who came too close to a truth they weren't ready to face. You've been carrying pain that doesn't even belong to you. Pain that was handed to you in silence, in mixed signals, in the gut-wrenching confusion that comes from trying to love someone who keeps running. And now you're left with questions that don't stop spinning. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Why did they stop showing up when I needed them most? You feel shattered. And the most devastating part, you blame yourself. Because love in your heart is about showing up. It's about vulnerability, presence, and truth. You gave all of that. You peeled your heart open. You made space for them in your world, in your emotions, in your future. But they didn't stay. They pulled away. They shut down. And in the absence of answers, your mind filled in the blanks with shame. Maybe you were too much. Maybe you were too emotional. Maybe you shouldn't have cared so deeply. Stop. This voice inside your head, that's not truth. That's trauma. That's emotional residue from someone else's fear crashing into your capacity to love. You're not broken because they pulled away. You're not weak because you kept hoping they'd return. You're human. Human enough to care. Human enough to want connection. Human enough to feel the rupture of abandonment and still hope it was something you could fix. But here's the truth: it was never yours to fix. You didn't fail. You didn't mess up. You didn't lose them. They were never fully present in the first place, because when someone hasn't made peace with their own heart, they can't hold yours. That's why you feel broken, because you're grieving a connection that never got the chance to fully breathe. Because you were given to someone who was emotionally unavailable, but didn't tell you that. Because you kept trying and they kept withdrawing. And that dance of reaching and retreating shattered your sense of stability. It's not the distance that hurt you the most. It's the inconsistency. It's the way they came close just long enough to give you hope, only to disappear again. It's the way you tasted intimacy, then starved. And in that starvation, you started shrinking yourself just to keep what little closeness you were allowed. You tolerated emotional crumbs because you thought that's all they could give. And maybe it was, but the truth is you deserve more. You deserve a love that doesn't vanish in the night. You deserve a presence that doesn't come with conditions. You deserve connection that doesn't cost your dignity, your clarity, or your peace. You feel broken because your nervous system has been in a constant loop of hope and hurt, of opening and bracing for impact. You are holding your breath, waiting for something that never fully arrived. But hear this now. You are not broken. You are waking up. Waking up to patterns that never served you. Waking up to truths that were hidden in silence. Waking up to the realization that love shouldn't leave you questioning your worth. You are powerful enough to see it now. That this pain, as deep as it runs, is not proof of failure. It's proof of your capacity to love. It's proof that you showed up even when they didn't. And that's not weakness. That's courage. You kept trying to bridge the distance. You kept loving through confusion. You kept standing in front of someone who couldn't even face themselves. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you brave. But now you must be brave in a different way. Brave enough to stop blaming yourself. Brave enough to stop carrying someone else's emotional chaos like it's your burden to heal. Brave enough to admit that just because someone can't meet you where you are doesn't mean you need to lower your frequency to reach them. You feel broken because you invested deeply. But investment is not a flaw. Your capacity for emotional depth is not the problem. It's your superpower. You didn't break because you loved too much. You broke because you forgot to love yourself just as fiercely. So no, you're not too much. You were simply trying to pour light into someone who didn't know how to hold it. And now it's time to reclaim that light, to stop bleeding for someone who won't even admit they're wounded. You feel broken. But underneath that pain is someone unshakable, someone whole, someone who's learning that love isn't about sacrificing yourself to prove your worth. It's about recognizing your worth and refusing to abandon yourself for anyone. Love has a language, but not everyone speaks it in a way the heart understands. Avoidants speak love in silence, in caution. In retreat, it's not the language of romantic comedies or open expressions. It's not grand gestures or heartfelt declarations. It's subtle, fragmented, often invisible. And yet, if you've loved one, you've felt it. You've sensed the conflict between what they feel and what they allow themselves to show. You've seen the flickers of care, the moments they lean in, even if only briefly, before they vanish again. Because for avoidance, love doesn't feel safe. It feels threatening. It's the moment when their armor begins to crack. And instead of feeling relief, they feel panic. So they speak their version of love in strange ways. They check in when you least expect it. They remember the little things, but act like it's no big deal. They offer practical help, not emotional comfort. They might sit next to you in silence, afraid to say the wrong thing, yet refusing to leave. And when things get too close, they pull away. Not because they don't care, but because they care so much they don't know what to do with it. It's backwards. It's painful. It's confusing. But it's their language, a language written by survival, not intention. To them, love is risk. Love is uncertainty. Love is needing someone so badly that losing them could destroy everything. So they withhold, not because their feelings are small, but because the intensity of those feelings scares them. When you say, talk to me, they hear, expose your fear. When you say, I need you, they hear, you'll fail them. When you say, open up to me, they hear, let go of the only control you have left. Their silence isn't apathy. It's anxiety. Their detachment isn't cruelty. It's defense. And somewhere deep inside, there's a child who learned, if I speak, I'll be rejected. If I need, I'll be abandoned. If I love, I'll lose. So they stay quiet. They push, they test, and they hurt the very people who make them feel safest. Not because they want to, but because it's the only way they've ever known how to protect themselves. Avoidants don't lack love. They lack emotional safety. And when you give them that safety, they don't always embrace it. They question it. They resist it because it doesn't match their internal wiring. That's why your consistency triggers their chaos. Your warmth challenges their cold. Your openness exposes their fear. They're not used to love that stays. They're not used to love that doesn't demand something in return. So what do? They test it. They push you to the edge. They try to confirm the belief they've held all their lives. No one really stays. Everyone leaves. And if you don't leave, if you stay calm when they get cold, if you remain soft when they go hard, if you keep showing up when they pull back, they start to panic even more. Because now you're disrupting the very pattern they built their emotional world around. That's when they pull their harshest move. They go silent. They disappear. They let the connection bleed out without closure. Not to hurt you, but to relieve themselves of the pressure of feeling. And here's the hardest part to accept. You can't decode their love language while abandoning your own. You can't keep translating silence as care forever. You can't keep accepting pain as proof of love. Yes, avoidants feel deeply. Yes, they often love silently. But you are not required to sacrifice your emotional needs just to feel chosen by someone who hasn't yet chosen to face their wounds. You've tried to meet them where they are. You've tried to understand. You've tried to see the love beneath the walls. But now you need to understand this love that hides behind fear will always feel like confusion. Love that speaks in withdrawal will always feel like pain. And love that constantly needs translation will always make you feel like the problem. So if you've been loving an avoidant, and you've been decoding their silence, interpreting their absence, clinging to the little things, hoping it means something, you're not crazy. You're exhausted. Exhausted from being the emotional interpreter in a one-way dialogue. Exhausted from trying to hold up a connection built on unspoken tension. Exhausted from waiting for someone to meet you with the same openness you've given again and again. Their language is pain, but yours doesn't have to be. You can understand someone's pain without turning it into your purpose. You can see their wounds without making them the roadmap of your relationship. Because if love can't be spoken, if love can't be shown in a way that feeds both people, then it's not a love you're meant to endure. It's a lesson you're meant to learn from. So you never again confuse pain for intimacy. You didn't sign up to play a role in someone else's emotional survival, but slowly, without realizing it, you became a part of their pattern. You became the anchor to their chaos, the warmth to their cold, the patience to their push and pull. At first, it felt like connection, like purpose, like love. But over time, something shifted. You weren't just loving them, you were managing them, walking on emotional eggshells, trying not to trigger their withdrawal, trying to stay close without making them uncomfortable. And somewhere in all of that, you started fading, you started shrinking your needs, you started editing your emotions. You started carrying the weight of both your heart and theirs. Because deep down you told yourself, if I can just love them enough, they'll stay, they'll change, they'll feel safe. But here's the truth no one tells you. It is not your job to fix someone's fear of intimacy. You can hold space. You can offer compassion. You can try to understand. But you cannot, must not, become the sacrifice for someone who won't face their pain. Because when you do, you lose yourself in the process. And love, true love, was never meant to cost you your identity. You are not their therapist. You are not their healer. You are not their emotional punching bag. You are a whole human being with needs, boundaries, and a heart that deserves to be held, not tolerated. Yes, maybe they're scared. Yes, maybe they didn't mean to hurt you. But meaning doesn't erase the wound. Intentions don't erase the impact. And here's where your power comes in. You have to stop confusing understanding someone's pain with accepting their behavior. You have to stop lowering your standards in the name of empathy. Because love doesn't mean self-abandonment. Love doesn't mean waiting for someone to be ready while your soul slowly starves. Your role is not to prove your worth to someone who only sees it when they're afraid of losing you. Your role is not to teach someone how to love you by tolerating their absence. Your role is not to beg for consistency from someone who only gives it when you pull away. Let this sink in. You are allowed to walk away from someone, even if you understand why they're the way they are. Because your compassion has limits, and it should. Because your love is sacred, and it must be treated that way. You don't have to keep proving that you're safe. You don't have to keep trying to be enough for someone who hasn't even made space for their own heart. Your role now is not to save them. It's to save yourself. To remember who you were before the confusion, before the second guessing, before you became so good at decoding their needs that you forgot your own. Because love that costs you clarity is not love. It's emotional labor. Love that needs constant reassurance isn't a relationship. It's a rescue mission. And maybe you thought if you just held on long enough, they'd heal. Maybe you believed that your presence would be the one that finally made them feel safe. But people don't heal because you love them. They heal because they choose to face themselves. And no amount of your effort can substitute for their unwillingness to do that. You didn't fail. You just loved someone who wasn't ready. You just gave to someone who only knew how to take. You just stayed too long hoping they'd see your value when they were too afraid to even look in the mirror. Now you have a choice to keep playing a role in their pattern or to rewrite your own. Because the truth is, you're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be met, to be loved in full, not in fragments, to be seen clearly, not only when they're lonely, to be chosen actively, not just when they fear losing you. So reclaim your place in the story, not as the fixer, not as the emotional caretaker, but as the main character of your own healing. You've played their background role long enough. It's time to step back into the center, to choose you, to honor what you need, to realize that being the bigger person doesn't mean making yourself small. This is not the end of your worth. This is the beginning of your remembrance of who you are, what you deserve, and how deeply you're allowed to love without it costing your soul. You've been through the fire and you've walked through it with bare feet, hoping the burn would somehow purify the pain. But pain doesn't purify, it reveals. It reveals what's been buried. It reveals the truth behind the connection. It reveals you in your rawest, most honest form. You were hurt deeply, not just by someone pulling away, but by the hope you held on to, by the version of them you believed in, by the story you wrote in your mind how it could have been if only they stayed, if only they tried, if only they chose you fully. And when that story collapsed, it felt like a death, not just of the relationship, but of who you were becoming inside of it. But pain has a way of waking you up, not gently, not quietly. It rips you from your illusions. It shakes you from your denial. It hands you the truth, whether or not you're ready to hold it. And now here you are, no longer living in the fantasy, no longer pretending you're okay with the silence, no longer shrinking yourself to make room for someone else's fears. This pain, it's not your enemy, it's your teacher, it's your turning point, it's the door out of who you were and into who you were always meant to become. Because something in you was asleep, something in you believed that love meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant endurance, that your worth was proven through how much pain you could tolerate, but not anymore. Now you rise. Now you wake up to the truth. This wasn't rejection. This was redirection, away from the version of you that settled, away from the version of you that clung to chaos and called it love, away from the cycle of trying to earn what should be freely given. You loved deeply. That was your strength, not your weakness. You hoped, you fought, you stayed. But now you must love yourself with that same intensity. Now the energy you poured into understanding them must return to you. The compassion you extended to them must be redirected inward. The patience you showed them must become the patience you give yourself as you heal, because the power you're looking for. It's not out there. It's not in closure. It's not in their apology. It's not in them coming back and finally choosing you. The power is in you. It's in the decision to stop needing people to validate your worth. It's in the moment you choose to walk forward, alone if necessary, rather than wait to be saved. It's in the awareness that your heart is not broken beyond repair. It's breaking open. Open to something deeper. Open to standards you never enforced. Open to boundaries you never protected. Open to a version of love that doesn't come with a battle. You don't need to be the one who endures the most pain to prove you're worthy of love. You don't need to be the one who always understands, always forgives, always waits. You can love someone and still say, I choose me. You can grieve someone and still say, I deserve better. You can miss them and still walk away. That's power, not bitterness, not revenge. Choosing your peace, choosing your wholeness, choosing a life where love doesn't feel like emotional war, this pain. It's the portal to boundaries, to clarity, to strength, to standards, to love that nourishes instead of drains, to connection that feels like calm, not chaos, to relationships that don't make you question your value every time they pull away. But to get there, you have to stop waiting for them to heal. You have to stop hoping your love will be the light they finally follow home. Because while you're busy fixing them, you're forgetting that you need healing too, and no one's coming to rescue you. Not them, not closure, not time. You are the rescue. You are the one who takes the hurt and turns it into healing. You are the one who turns confusion into clarity. You are the one who stops reaching backward and starts moving forward with purpose. This is your moment. The one where the pain no longer owns you. The one where you stop asking, why did they leave? And start asking, why did I stay so long in something that made me forget who I am? Well, you are not fragile. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are becoming. And this pain was just the beginning. Now you know. Now you see clearly. Now there's no more room for illusion. You've walked through heartbreak. You've sat in silence that cut deeper than words ever could. You've given your energy, your time, your spirit to someone who didn't know how to receive it. And still you stayed. You tried. You hoped. But this is where that ends. This is where you begin. Because the version of you who tolerated emotional unavailability, who begged for breadcrumbs of affection, who stayed small just to keep someone else comfortable, that version of you is gone. You've outgrown the cage of emotional confusion. You've outlived the game of prove your worth. You've outrun the cycle of hoping that love will finally show up if you just stay a little longer. You are not here to be a placeholder in someone's healing process. You are not here to be a warm body in their cold emotional world. You are not here to keep choosing people who do not choose you back with clarity, commitment, and courage. This is your call to rise, to stop waiting, to stop explaining, to stop begging for energy that should have been offered freely. You spent enough time surviving. Now it's time to start living. Living with standards, living with boundaries, living with the kind of self-respect that doesn't flinch in the face of someone else's indecision. They might come back. They might reach out. They might finally say the words you've waited so long to hear. But by then, you'll be someone new. You'll be someone who doesn't need their approval to feel whole. Someone who doesn't confuse inconsistency with passion. Someone who doesn't wait for love to arrive from a place that only offers confusion. You are not cold for walking away. You are not selfish for protecting your heart. You are not cruel for choosing peace over chaos. You are powerful. You are healing. You are awake. And now you rise, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with hate, but with truth. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you were always more than their silence made you feel. Let the world see the version of you that no longer chases, that no longer shrinks, that no longer accepts emotional breadcrumbs in place of love. Let the world meet the version of you who knows what they deserve, who doesn't tolerate emotional hiding, who doesn't get tangled in the confusion of someone too afraid to meet you at your depth. Because the truth is your softness isn't the problem. Your desire for connection isn't the issue. Your need for consistency, communication, and depth isn't asking too much. It's asking the right things from the wrong person. And now your life begins again, built not on the fear of losing people, but on the joy of finally finding yourself. The self that doesn't chase love, but attracts it. The self that doesn't explain their value, but walks in it. The self that knows love is not meant to hurt. Love is not meant to confuse. Love is not meant to make you feel like you're begging just to be seen. You've already walked through the fire. Now you rise from it, reborn, clear, bold, unshakable. This is your moment. Not to get revenge. Not to prove anything. But to return to yourself. To remember that love isn't earned through pain. It's revealed in peace. And anyone who cannot meet you there is no longer your assignment. You're not broken. You're becoming. And this is just the beginning. So stand tall, speak clearly, feel fully. Walk forward, head, heart open, soul untamed. Because the version of you that needed them to stay, that version was powerful. But the version of you that no longer needs their presence to feel whole, that version is unstoppable. Now rise.